Meek deals. Base hit to right field. Here comes Richardson. Here's the throw from Markakis. Richardson is safe. Derek Jeter ends his final game with a walk-off single.
And man, where was that this past weekend? We needed some timely hitting like that this past weekend. It never gets old to see that clip, never gets old to hear the baritone that is Michael K. But definitely needed some hitting like that this weekend for the New York Yankees. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dog Days of Baseball, episode 6, June Swoons. I'm Pete Rosado. Big mad. Softball got canceled tonight. And joined as always by Alfred. You can catch him every single week on the Metropolitan Report podcast on YouTube for all your up-to-date Mets news as well. Hyperlocal Mets report with the Metropolitan Report. Grizz with the night off tonight. But we are recording episode number 6, June Swoon. And Al, we're going to start with the biggest story coming out of the weekend, coming out of Father's Day. Go West, young man. Boston Red Sox, hours after sweeping the New York Yankees in a weekend series and winning 5 of 6 games in 2 weekend series from the New York Yankees, trade their very best player, third baseman, DH, Rafael Devers. Devers goes from the Red Sox to the San Francisco Giants for left-hand pitcher Kyle Harrison, right-hand pitcher Jordan Hicks, James Tibbs, outfield prospect, highly touted in their system, and minor league right-hand pitcher Jose Bello. Before we get into the breakdown of the trade here, Al, I just got to ask you, what were your thoughts when this trade first went down on Sunday night when the news came across the wire?
Well, several things, Pete. Well, number one, me being a Mets fan, we only see Boston once a year. We see the Giants twice a year, but they're not a division rival. So when I think baseball in general, from my standpoint, a kid who practically lives in Citi Field, it didn't immediately, the magnitude of what happened didn't immediately hit me, because it's not like I root for a team like the Dodgers or the Padres who are going to see these guys more often than anybody else. But when it did hit me, the first thing I said was, they traded the face of the franchise and a superstar. And usually, when you trade the face of your franchise, you trade your best player. And Boston's no stranger to this. They did it right before 2020 when they sent Mookie Betts to the Dodgers. You usually do a move like that in the offseason. You don't do it in the middle of the year. And you usually don't do a move like that when your team is at 500 and can realistically have a shot to compete in the postseason. So then the details come out of what they got for him, and I'm pretty sure you'll agree with me. What they gave up, the return is nowhere near what they gave up. I mean, you look at the major league ready players that they got in that deal, right? Jordan Hicks, similar to Clay Holmes' career path, was a closer in St. Louis. Had Tommy John. St. Louis gave up on him, and he ends up in San Francisco, ends up becoming a starting pitcher. Okay, all right. But if you look at his numbers, he's got an ERA north of 5. He's 1-5 for the year. So his ERA and his win-loss record are not great. You get Kyle Harrison, who is a young pitcher and can be something down the line, but as of right now, he's not ready yet. And dare I say, he wouldn't, if he was on a better team like a Yankees or a Dodgers, he may not even be on the big league club, let alone the 40-man roster.
And he did get an option to AAA. So
yeah,
Boston Harrison to AAA.
And then you look, they get 2 more prospects. Usually, there would be more involved. This trade is lopsided. It's not like it's not like when the Nationals sent Juan Soto, who was their best player, to San Diego, and they ended up getting a whole boatload of prospects that ended up panning out and being good. So the next thing that hit my mind, and the last thing, it's no secret. Since spring training, it's been reported, it's been out in the open. Devers and the Red Sox owner John Henry and the general manager just weren't getting along. They wanted him to come off of third and go to first base to accommodate Alex Bregman, a new signing. He said, "No, I don't want to go to first base." Even in a press conference said, and I quote, "I'm the boss." Somehow they convinced him to get off third and be a designated hitter. And he did that, but he did that begrudgingly. So he's openly feuding with the front office, with the owner. So when I heard that he got moved, and teams usually don't move their best player for nothing. So instantly, in my mind, it said the Red Sox are making a statement. That is a statement to every current player on their roster, any potential free agent they will ever get, and any player that may end up there at any point in time, that you will do what we pay you to do. And if you do not comply, we will ship you out of here. Because they gave up their best player. And literally, the return was not worth what they sent the Giants. It's not. And for anybody to try and I was on Instagram earlier today, and former Mets GM and ESPN personality Steve Phillips was trying to make sense of the trade, saying, "Oh, well, Roman Anthony has been called up, and Marcelo Meyer has been called up, and now these guys are going to get at bats. They can get chances to play. They don't have to go back." If you are trying to get a playoff spot, which the Red Sox are because they're 500, they're coming off of their best stretch, their hottest stretch of the season, and you send your best player packing, it's a statement. They're making a statement that insubordination and being a malcontent will not be tolerated in that clubhouse and in that organization. That's what it is.
As you said, the Red Sox are 8-2 in their last 10 on a 5-game winning streak. They're a game over 500. But when we talk about a playoff spot, I'm a little worried, right? Because they are 6.5 games out of 6.5 games out of first place in the AL East. And right now,
I believe they are the last wild card spot if the season ended today.
They are a half game out because right now, top 3 teams in the wild card: Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Seattle.
And you know what's crazy?
With Minnesota and the Red Sox being a half game out of the final wild card spot.
And they open a series in Seattle tonight. So
right.
that has implications.
But as you said, right, when John Henry personally flew to go speak with Devers, because this all started really after they asked him when Casas went down. When their first baseman went down, and they were like, "Hey, Devers, listen, we might want to broach the possibility of you playing first base," right? And Devers was just like, "Yeah, no, I've already moved for you once. I moved from third to DH. I'm not doing it again. Like I traded in my fielder's glove for the year." To me, at that moment, his time in Boston was done. It was written. Because say what you want about basketball, say what you want about football, say what you want about a lot of these sports. There are 2 sports in particular, hockey and baseball, where if you are not willing to be a team player, teams will ship you out in a heartbeat.
Yep.
There is no, when I was growing up, my primary position is as a pitcher. I wanted to be a pitcher. I was really good at it. And that's what I trained at. I trained at being a pitcher. But my dad, when he was training me to play baseball when I was younger, always told me from a very young age, learn to play every position. Even if you're not good at every position, at least be good in multiple spots on the field, because your usefulness becomes infinitely more valuable to a team because you can do more things. If you're just a pitcher and you go to try out for this baseball team and they have a lot of good pitchers, They might not have any use for you. Doesn't mean you're not good. It just means they don't have a use for you. But hey, if they need a shortstop and you can play shortstop, all of a sudden you're looked at as valuable. Oh, we can use this guy at shortstop because we don't have a shortstop. And hey, guess what? If a pitcher gets hurt and we just so happen to find another shortstop, we got this guy. We can move him to the pitching squad and we get another guy at shortstop. There's a lot of different things you can do. And when you look at a lot of the utility guys that we watched growing up, that's what made these guys so valuable. They always had a job with a team, a Julio Franco, a Luis Soho. These guys always had a job. And so that was the thing. I learned how to play the infield. I learned how to play the outfield. I could catch. I can pitch. I came out of the bullpen. I could start. I can do all these different things because then I could tell a team, well, what do you need? Not what do you do? What do you need? Right. And coming from another place where you and I spend a lot of our time in the world of professional wrestling, one of the things that when you listen to a lot of veterans, when you listen to a lot of people, they tell you, you go to a wrestling company, you say, how can I serve? How can I serve you? Like, what do you need and what positions can I possibly serve you in? Right. You and I are both broadcasters. Yep. We both do pro wrestling commentary, but I can do backstage correspondence. I can do ring announcing. I can manage. I can take a bump. I can go in there and take a bump. I'm not going to wrestle a match, but if you need me to be a manager and then get heat and get thrown around and take a bump, I can do it. Right? I can do ring announcing. I can do backstage interviews. I can do whatever you need. But if all I say is, hey, all I do is commentary, and you don't need a commentator, I'm shit out of luck.
Yep.
Right. And the minute Devers essentially said, this is what I'm going to do when I make the rules, that was it. You immediately said, I'm not a team player. I'm not here to do what's necessary for this team to win. Right. And you already kind of bristled the team when you made this issue when they signed Bregman.
And right? I think the worst part to add on to what you're saying, and if I'm John Henry, what would have irked me from a front office perspective was his "I'm the boss" comment.
Yes. And because, Devers is great. Devers is an all-star. Devers is not a franchise cornerstone, in my opinion, right now. He may be the face of the franchise, but I would not say Devers is Manny Ramirez. I would not say Devers is a David Ortiz type. I wouldn't say in the sense of your Mets. I would not say that Devers is a Pete Alonso. I would not say Devers is a Mike Piazza. I would not say Devers is an Al Light or a Derek Jeter, a guy like that, where if like you can make certain statements. But think when the Yankees brought in Alex Rodriguez played what position?
He was a shortstop in Texas, and they said we're going to move you to third.
He was a shortstop in Seattle.
Yep.
Came up as a shortstop. Played in Texas as a shortstop. Was an award-winning player as a shortstop.
Was an MVP as a shortstop.
MVP as a shortstop. Hit multiple years of 30-plus home runs as a shortstop. Multiple years hitting above 300 as a shortstop. Gold Glover as a shortstop. Silver Slugger as a shortstop. But what happened? Came to the Yankees. And what do you do?
When the old man Steinbrenner said, we're putting you to third, and he did not complain, and he struggled defensively initially, but he stuck with it and learned the position.
And won a ring. Won a ring and played alongside one of the greatest shortstops in all of baseball history in Derek Jeter.
That's right.
Okay, this is what when Mike Piazza started getting older and the knees started to break down defensively at the catcher position, what did the Mets say to him?
Try first base.
And he did it.
I mean, the experiment didn't last long. It only lasted a handful of games, but he
did it.
He did it.
And if the National League would have had what they have now, the universal DH,
yep.
You know darn well that Mets management would have said, hey, we're putting you a DH And again, it's about what is the best move and solution for the team to win. Anybody can be a designated hitter. I hate to say it. Not everybody's a great first baseman. Not everybody's a great position player. And so, hey, I'm taking a guy like Rafael Devers, and I'm saying, hey, we signed Alex Bregman. You're going to tell me that I should not sign Alex Bregman, a possibly franchise-changing player at third base, a good chip to bring in because, oh, God forbid, you don't want to move from third base, right? So you moved to DH. You had a problem with that. Hey, we now have an opportunity to move you into the field. We lost our young first baseman. We want you to play first base. We'll slot somebody in at designated hitter. Oh, no, I'm not moving from designated hitter. I don't understand it. I really don't. And now he's going to go to San Francisco, and he's not playing third base.
Matt Chapman's not moving.
He's not playing third base.
And do you know who their DH is? Jung Ho Lee's having a heck of a year at the plate.
Right, but they are talking about possibly having him at the DH position.
Listen, and I'll say this. I'll disagree with you on one thing. I do think that they looked at him as the cornerstone of the franchise for the simple fact of at the end of 2019, their front office had a choice to make. They could not keep them both. They had to get rid of either Betts or Devers. They chose once they got rid of Betts, they they let Bogarts walk. They committed to Devers. It's the same thing like when Cleveland traded Lindor to us, they fully committed to Jose Ramirez. So I think, especially with the money they paid him, because remember, he has one of the biggest contracts in baseball, and he still has about 9 years, I believe, left on that contract. So the fact that they let the other two star players go, and Mookie Betts, I don't know how Boston fans haven't turned their back on the team. They sent Mookie Betts to the Dodgers, and he's won 2 World Series in 5 years since he's been there. But that's another story for a different podcast. But Devers was the guy, arguably, because he's the lone holdover on that team from the last time they won the World Series in 2018. Yep. He was the only player from that championship team remaining. He was the highest paid player on that team, and from the looks of it, he's probably going to be the only all-star that team had this year.
Yeah, but I mean, when I say he's not a franchise cornerstone, like to me, he's one of those guys where he's a great player. There's no doubt about that.
Let me ask you.
He's one of those guys that's going to set record. But I'm not looking at him when I sit there and I say, who are the greatest Red Sox of all time?
I'll tell you
I'm not listing Devers on that list.
When it comes to all time,
or at least you don't have the cachet right now, 9 years in, to essentially put your what on the table and make that kind of demand.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say he is the second best Red Sox third baseman to ever play for them, only behind Wade Boggs. That you don't think so? What other third baseman that had as good of a Red Sox career as Devers? If we can pull it up.
You're going to tell me You're going to tell me Mike Lowell.
Mike Lowell was he was more a better Florida Marlin than he was a Boston Red Sox.
But still, you're going to tell me guys like Mike Lowell,
strictly their Red Sox career.
I mean, listen, most Red Sox are very, very in love with Mike Lowell, again with Kevin Youkilis, with Bill Mueller at third base. Yes, when you're talking about a pure numbers point of view, yes.
From a numbers point of view, Devers has all of them beat except for Wade Boggs. And right. Numbers is what gets your jersey retired and gets you in the Hall.
Yeah, but I don't think. I'm sorry. When I'm thinking about the Red Sox, I'm thinking about guys who listen, Nomar could have said, I'm not moving. Manny could have said, I'm not moving. Ortiz could say, I'm not moving. Youkilis could say, I'm not moving. You know, guys like Jason Varitek could have said Johnny Damon at the peak of his Red Sox career could have been like, I'm not moving outfield spots. You know, those guys had the cachet. And even those guys would not have done it.
Excuse me, sorry.
Bless you, sir.
Thank you. But David Ortiz, when they took him off first base, he went to DH with no problem. And you see, this is the thing. To be like you were saying earlier, and this is a philosophy of mine that I live and die with in any field of life. No one player or no one man is greater than the team or the organization.
Yep.
We've seen, look at Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts was a second baseman by trade, ended up becoming an outfielder, never refused the assignment, ended up last season, in the middle of the season after the season started, went from second base to shortstop. And look where it's gotten him. The man's a 3-time World Series champion and probably going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when it's all said and done.
Right.
Yeah, you get guys like I mean, he's not going to be a Hall of Famer, but guys like Jeff McNeil on my team. They need him to play second, he'll play second. They need him to play third, he'll play third. You want him in left, right, center, it doesn't matter. Like,
listen, Aaron Judge has played center field, he's played right field, and I guarantee you one day Aaron Judge will play first base for the New York Yankees. Bryce
Harper is doing it. He was an outfielder by trade. He's a first baseman now.
Right, and it's just no one player's. I agree with you there, but we've talked about this trade from the Red Sox. Of course, listen. Last thing on the Red Sox, I think from the sense of John Henry, this puts a stamp on Craig Breslow, the general manager, that they respect him. They see him as a leader of this team, and obviously getting rid of Devers versus getting rid of Breslow. This obviously does give a lot more openness to the Red Sox lineup to get their young guys some at bats. When you're looking at guys like Roman Anthony, Marcelo Mayer, Christian Campbell, and then you also have Jaron Duran, Rafaela, Wilyer Abreu, Rob Refschneider, guys like that you do want to get some reps in. I don't think Boston's going to make the playoffs this year. I don't think this is a playoff push, but I think this is the first step towards the future for them. But I do want to talk about this trade from the perspective of the San Francisco Giants. This is a team that is 2 games out of first place in the NL West, a division that is a lot more hotly contested than I think people thought it was going to be, thanks in part to the Dodgers' very leaky pitching staff this year, oft-injured pitching staff. Their offense has really carried them, but the San Francisco Giants, 41-31, 2 games out of first place. The Padres, only 3 games out of first place, a game out of second. The Giants have been incredible. Buster Posey as literally just, I mean, he's wheeled and dealed for probably the best offensive player the Giants have seen since Buster Posey.
Yeah.
And you essentially, the rich get a little richer. Matt Chapman, their third baseman, is working his way back from injury, but he will be their everyday third baseman. There's talk of Devers taking first base, as the majority of the first base reps for the Giants has been Lamont Wade Jr. And then he was traded to the Angels, and Dominic Smith. So there's talk about Wilmer Flores shifting over to take first. Hyung-Jo Lee will probably go back to the outfield full time. And then you have Devers at first or Devers at DH, but I think Devers going to get a lot of time at DH. And man, this makes that lineup absolutely nuts. You're talking about Jung-Ho Lee, Helio Ramos, Devers, Chapman, Yastrzemski, Fitzgerald, Patrick Bailey, and Wilmer Flores or Dom Smith at first. I mean, this team looks dangerous, and they've already been dangerous without Rafael Devers. Do you think this Devers trade is enough to push San Francisco over the edge to possibly overtake the Los Angeles Dodgers in the NL West?
So you can look at it 2 ways. Number one, while they upgraded for significantly nothing, the Dodgers at the end of the day are going to be the Dodgers. When the Dodgers are fully healthy, that team they're world beaters. The reason why the Dodgers are only 2 games up is because their starting pitching rotation has been hurt all year. Roki Sasaki is now out the rest of the year.
Yep.
Yamamoto has been the only consistent pitching piece of that rotation that's been good. Everybody else, Clayton Kershaw should honestly hang it up, in my opinion. Nothing left to prove, and the man's been laboring every start he's had. Dustin May up and down hurt. Blake Snell gone. Tony Gonsolin gone. So what's this guy's name? Used to play for Tampa Bay. Tyler Glasnow. Glasnow up and down hurt. So
Glasnow likely not coming back till July. Snell at best July.
Ohtani,
as you said, Sasaki out for the season.
Ohtani hasn't pitched until today. The man hasn't pitched a game in 2 seasons. Who knows what he's going to look like on the mound? So, you know, and their bullpen is not much better. Kirby Yates and Tanner Scott's been inconsistent. Kirby Yates has been hurt. Blake Trinan has been nowhere to be found. He's been hurt most of the season.
Gonsolin's been hurt.
Yeah, but the Dodgers' offense is what it is. But you know, you need pitching to win games. I think the Giants have propelled themselves into a wild card spot, to tell you the truth. Because I do believe once the Dodgers heal up, they're going to be firing on all cylinders. And for a team with a deadly 1 through 9 like that, you can never count them out or sleep on them. The other thing I think about with the Giants in this Devers trade is Devers going to be a clubhouse cancer like he was in his final days in Boston? That's the big question, because is he going to be a media circus? Is he going to be a distraction? Because not for nothing, I don't know if you've been looking at social media, but the Red Sox fans who are not upset about this deal, they've waved goodbye to him and said good riddance. So, you know, is Devers going to be a good teammate to these guys? Is a change of scenery going to change his attitude? If he doesn't get what he wants, how is he going to react? The scary part about this situation, look how many years Devers has left under contract. The Giants are now assuming that contract. So if he becomes a malcontent in San Francisco, how do you remedy yourselves of that issue? He's most likely not going to fall in line if he doesn't get what he wants. What is the likelihood he gets traded again? Because most teams are not going to pick that contract up as big as it is. So I believe they could challenge for the division title, but it's all dependent on if Devers can be a good teammate and not be a distraction.
Yeah, I agree. And listen, Buster Posey coming through, major move right here. This is going to be the make or break move, as you said, for the San Francisco Giants. And I do think the Giants have what it takes. The Giants this year, and I'm being a little loose on the comparison here, are kind of the Cleveland Guardians this year, right? Where it's like you don't expect them to be this good, and you're just like, we don't know how this is happening. Last year, the Guardians pitching staff was the absolute crap.
Yep.
And yet their offense just kept hitting. And every time we would do an episode here, we would sit here and say, there's no way this offense is going to keep hitting like this. There's no way this is going to keep going. And I think we're saying that about the Giants this year, right? They were that sneaky team. Everyone was talking about the Dodgers and the Padres. No one was really talking about the Giants this year. And yet the Giants are here in second place, 2 games out of first. And if I must say, the second best run differential in that division and the third best run differential in the National League. Sorry, the fourth best run differential in the National League. Only the Cubs, the Mets, and the Dodgers ahead of them. If we look across, there are only 3 other teams ahead of them, that being the Yankees, the Rays, and the Tigers. But if they were in the American League, by the way, if the Giants were in the American League, they would still have the 4th best run differential in the American League. They are 22-11 at home. Their road record does scare me. They're 19-20 on the road. But this could be the big piece. And I don't know if you get rid of Devers again. I think you keep Devers. You probably talk with him about a move to first base permanently, right, in the offseason. Or maybe at some point, maybe listen, Matt Chapman, we all know third baseman, they're not that third basemen are not built the way they used to, where third basemen are going to play 15 plus years at third base. Okay. So maybe it is a situation where, hey, we move Chapman to first. We put Devers at third. And now we can go get a DH. Or maybe you move Chapman to DH to start protecting his health. And you put Devers at third. You got so many different options. But I do think you have the conversation with Devers. And I think that was where Devers was being a little bit malcontent. And maybe the little bit of devil's advocate I could say on Devers' side is, have the conversation. Right? Don't, especially with that move to first base. I do not agree at all with Rafael Devers' stance upon the Boston Red Sox going after Alex Bregman. Right? In fact, if you want to stay on your high horse, what I would have done if I was Devers is I would have said, I welcome bringing in an offensive piece like Alex Bregman who can make our team better. And yeah, I get that we both play third base, but we'll just have to see who has the better spring training. We'll compete for third base like two stars would, and one of us can play third and one of us can play DH, and we'll leave it up to the front office to make that decision. Welcome it in. Don't just kill it from the beginning. And then they ended up getting them anyway and making you having to do what you need to do anyway. I do think with the first base situation, you talk to Devers first before you make the comments in the media the way that they did.
Yeah.
About the possibility of shifting Devers to first, especially considering how tenuous the Devers situation had been. But we talked about injuries. You touched on it a little bit when we were talking about the Dodgers and their position at the top of the NL West. But talking about injury return, tonight is the return for two big stars, for two big market teams. You went straight forward in the very first topic. Shohei Ohtani returning to the mound as a starting pitcher for the first time in 22 months. He did not pitch all of last season. Last time, in fact, that he pitched was way back in 2023 with the Los Angeles Angels before he even came to the Dodgers. First time in 22 months, Shohei Ohtani will see a mound. And for the first time since the playoffs of last season, Giancarlo Stanton will once again re-enter the Yankee lineup. He is hitting tonight in that game. Yankees, last I checked, it was 0-0 as we are here in the top of the ninth inning. Has Soriano for the Angels has pitched incredible ball into the seventh inning. Clark Schmidt pitched one hell of a game for the New York Yankees right now. Giancarlo Stanton starting at DH tonight, 1 for 3 so far in this game with a strikeout. Shohei Ohtani will be going live on the mound in about 45 minutes Eastern time from where we're recording in the New York, New Jersey area. I guess the obvious question, Al, is who's the bigger return for their team? And what do you think will be the impact or season outcome for both of these players returning tonight?
It's hard to say which one is the bigger return. But if I had to go at it, I would say Ohtani going back to the mound is a bigger return because when he was on the mound, he was winning MVPs offensively. And even though he never won the Cy Young, he was in the conversation for AL Cy Youngs when he was active as a pitcher. To get a player who's a two-way player, being a two-way player is already difficult. Before Shohei Ohtani did it, we hadn't seen a two-way player since Babe Ruth. It's over 100 years. And again, he was a Cy Young award contending caliber starting pitcher. So I think having a guy like that who can hurt opposing teams at the plate and give your bullpen a break, pitch about a good 5. And now mind you, he's gonna be a pitch count now, but in on the Angels, he was going 6 innings, 7 innings here and there. Again, Cy Young award contending. So I think that's the bigger return because he helps your team in multiple ways. Of course, Giancarlo Stanton returning to the Yankees, and you're a Yankee fan, so you could attest to this. Unless you DH Stanton, you can't really play him in the field because over the last couple of years, his defensive abilities have declined, especially when he had those heel issues a couple seasons ago. So Stanton provides you pop, but that Yankee lineup with Judge, Grisham, Rice, Chisholm, how much more pop could you? And then Goldschmidt's having a heck of a year. I don't really think they benefit from one extra batter with a little bit of pop. So I'm going to say Otani going to the mound is a bigger return.
The last time we saw Otani on the mound, as I said, 2023 with the Angels, he started 23 games, went 10-5, with a 3.14 ERA and a 1.06 WHIP. In fact, in 2023, his opponent's batting average was 184. If you can believe that. His opponents only slugged 333, and his opponent on base percentage was 285. Otani has been great when he's been on the mound. He's rarely hittable, and he's hard to get out when you're pitching to him. But I will say to you, I believe that Giancarlo Stanton coming back to the New York Yankees lineup is a bigger return for his team than Otani returning to the mound. And here's why. As we said earlier, the Dodgers pitching staff is literally holding on by the thread of a pitcher who needs Tommy John surgery. And I don't know if Otani's singular return changes that. It's one guy every 5-6 days. Now, if you were telling me Snell is out there throwing and Yamamoto's out there throwing, and Sasaki's out there throwing, and now you've got Otani coming back, and you're talking you can go 4 or 5 pitchers deep, 6 pitchers deep in that starting rotation, and you can stretch that rotation out, then I would sit here and agree with you that Shohei Ohtani coming back to the mound is a bigger return for the Dodgers. Do I think it's a bigger deal as an individual player? Yes. Do I think Shohei Ohtani's return to the mound will have a bigger impact on his season as an individual? Yes. And I do think that his numbers in terms of his effectiveness numerically will be bigger for him from a season perspective than probably the actual statistical impact that Giancarlo Stanton will have on the Yankees. And I could be wrong. Giancarlo could finally have some good leg season and rake. But I think Giancarlo Stanton coming back to the Yankee lineup is a bigger deal for the team, and for the same reason I explained with Otani. It makes that lineup for the Yankees deeper. It makes that lineup for the Yankees more versatile, right? You now have situations where you've got Goldschmidt at first. So Ben Rice is going to either spell Goldschmidt at first, or he's going to be the backup catcher for Austin Wells, which means you give Austin Wells a little bit more rest without losing the offensive production from your catcher position when Austin Wells sits down. You now have Dominguez, Bellinger, Grisham, and Judge, 4 outfielders. So somebody's going to sit go into that DH spot every now and again. Or now you have Grisham sitting on the bench. You have that power coming off the bench with Grisham, that pop coming off the bench. Maybe if Bellinger needs some time on the bench and Grisham's hot, you put Bellinger on the bench and you have him there. Or you put Rice on the bench and you have him sitting there. Bellinger can also play multiple positions. You now have Giancarlo Stanton in the lineup, making the lineup longer, making the lineup decisions deeper. I think it gives the Yankees a lot more complexity from an offensive standpoint, because now you can go Goldschmidt, Jazz, Judge, Bellinger, Stanton, Dominguez, Goldschmidt, Wells. You're going 8, Volpe. You're going 9 deep. You legitimately have a quality hitter at every position. If we're looking at their lineup tonight, they started Grisham in center field, batting leadoff, Ben Rice batting second and starting at first base. Goldschmidt actually did not play today. He came in as a pinch hitter, but he did not start today. Aaron Judge batting third and right. Bellinger batting fourth and left. Stanton batting fifth at DH. Jazz batting sixth at third. Volpe batting seventh at shortstop. Wells batting eighth at catcher. LeMahieu going ninth at second. Dominguez is not in tonight's lineup. That's another hitter that you got sitting on the bench right now. Right? So you've got a situation now where if you've got Grisham leading off, if you've got Goldschmidt leading off, 1 to 7, in my opinion, or even 1 to 8 is solid. That ninth position with LeMahieu or whoever's playing second, and again, LeMahieu's had some good shots this season. But we all know the situation with LeMahieu is he is older, he is injury prone. But I think now the Yankees are 1 to 8, substantially more deep, and you have a lot more to play with on the bench. Are we starting Dominguez tonight? And now you put Dominguez in some positions where you put him in and you maybe platoon a Dominguez against better pitching situations and let the metrics play in your favor. This is a situation where analytics could actually play in the Yankees' favor. When do we start a Grisham versus when do we start Dominguez? When do we start Rice versus Goldschmidt? Heck, I could have Rice and Goldschmidt in the same lineup on the same day because maybe I sit Austin Wells today and have Ben Rice start at catcher. Because, yes, for those of you who may not follow the minor leagues, Ben Rice came up in the system as a catcher.
That's right.
Ben Rice is a first baseman and has primarily played in the major leagues at first base, but the young man knows how to play catcher full time. Jazz can move if needs to move, right? They've talked about Goldschmidt being in other positions. Bellinger could play third base, right? There are so many different moves that you can make with the Yankees now. And I honestly will say, I know that there's a logjam right now at first with Goldschmidt and with Ben Rice. But I would honestly, in order to save his knees, but also to get him on the field more, because he has said that he does feel better hitting when he's playing the field, I would start to work Giancarlo Stanton out at first base. He's got the size of a first baseman. If you really think about Giancarlo Stanton, he fits the prototypical profile of what you and I grew up looking at first baseman to be. He's tall. He's a power hitter. Yeah. That's what we saw when we were looking at first baseman back in the day. So I don't know if there's anything wrong with maybe starting to get Giancarlo Stanton some reps at first base, because on the off chance Goldschmidt is a one-and-done Yankee, and maybe Ben Rice, you still don't want him to be the number one guy at first. You have a situation where you can move a Stanton to first base and have his bat in the lineup a lot more regularly and open up the DH spot for a guy like Judge to get his rest. So I think in that aspect, I think Giancarlo Stanton coming back to the Yankees actually has a bigger impact on the Yankees moving forward than Shohei Ohtani's singular return as one pitcher to a pitching squad that is really decimated right now. Because in my opinion, you can pick on the Dodgers pitching squad the other 4 days of the week until Glasnow comes back and Snell comes back. Then you can talk about, okay, we've got 3-4 guys. Right now, the Yankees, where's the holes in the lineup? Right now, it's what, 1, maybe 2 holes. In a 9-guy lineup, I'll take that every day of the week.
Fair points. Fair points. I just think that the Ohtani, again, because the Dodgers, they're all beat up in the rotation, getting another healthy arm outside of Yamamoto, a healthy, productive arm, because they've also started Landon Knack, and he's been inconsistent. That, I feel, I mean, offense is offense, and Stanton brings offense, but Stanton just brings offense. Stanton is not going to be able to play his outfield positions, I don't think. And until Goldie moves on, trying him out at first base is something that cannot happen until this season is over. So, or he goes down with a season-ending injury, Goldie, God forbid, whichever happens first. So, if Ohtani can come back to form as the pitcher that we knew him to be, Dodgers all of a sudden become much more dangerous because, now they have another healthy arm available that's productive. So that's just the way that I'm seeing it. Ohtani can hurt you in more ways than Judge can. Ohtani can strike you out and smack one over the wall in the same game for a homer.
This is very true, but he can only do that, both of those things in the same game once every 5 days.
Once every 5 days. That's also true. But and then it remains to be seen if this Dodgers rotation does get healthy. Him being available once every 5 days, they might go with a 6-man rotation. Who knows? And Ohtani coming back to pitch, even though he's only pitching once every 5 days, Pete, it's helping other players because Kershaw can get some more rest. When Snell comes back, Snell will get more rest. And then it also helps the bullpen because if he could go deep into games, less bullpen arms get burned. So it has its effects there too, I believe.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And that's why I said if he was coming back to a healthy pitching squad, where you're talking about we've got Sasaki, we've got Yamamoto, we've got Snell, we've got Glasnow, and now we're bringing Ohtani back, and you got Kershaw as a possible 6th guy. He doesn't need to be a 1 through 4 guy. He's your number 5. Ohtani's your number 4, maybe your number 6. Like, then we're talking dangerous right there, right? Because even if their offense is struggling, you're telling me you've got Ohtani, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Sasaki, Kershaw, now we're talking about a Snell. We're talking about a really, really, really incredible pitching squad, right? That's the rich getting richer. Then I'd say this is really huge. But right now you don't have that. You got Snell is out, Glasnow is out, Yamamoto is the only really guy still standing. Sasaki's out for the year, right? So it's the context of when they're coming back. And to be honest with you, I don't even know if the Dodgers wanted to bring Ohtani back right now. But I think the fact that Sasaki was announced to be gone for the year,
may have played a role.
They realized they needed to probably rush him back a little bit. Because if I'm being very honest with you, I wouldn't have been surprised if the Dodgers would have held him off the mound until after the All-Star break.
Very true, especially because coming off Tommy John not pitching for 22 months, so it's likely. But he always said his intention from signing with the Dodgers since last year was to be a two-way player for them. So
yes,
it's not like this decision to have him pitch again was something he originally didn't want to do, and they're forcing him to do it or thrusting him into the role. So, but Stanton is going to help that Yankee lineup. The fact that you have guys like Dominguez, who, I mean, say what you will, I'm no Yankee fan, but that kid, the Martian, is very talented, and the fact that you have him on the bench in a situation like tonight with Stanton in the lineup, that speaks volumes. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, right. That's a great problem to have. In fact, Yankees right now in the bottom of the 9th inning, 2 outs. Started the inning, Stanton hitting a double off of Kenley Jansen, going to second. Dominguez pinch running for him. Fortunately, now 2 outs. Chisholm struck out swinging, and Volpe grounded into a fielder's choice. Dominguez out at third. Volpe's now on first with 2 outs, and Austin Wells to the plate. This looks like this is going to go into extra inning between the Angels and the Yankees. But speaking of the Yankees and even your Mets, listen, June has not been kind to our teams. Let's talk about the seasons that the series that brought us into June. So for the Mets, we're going to go all the way back to that Colorado series that started on Friday, May 30th. For the Yankees, we're going to go to that Dodgers series that also started on Friday, May 30th. We'll start with the Yankees, having just talked about Stanton. The Yankees went and lost 2 out of 3 to LA. Then went to Cleveland, played Cleveland, won 2 out of 3, lost 2 out of 3 to Boston, then swept Kansas City, and then got swept by Boston in 3 games at Boston. overall for the month of June, starting back on May 30th, the Yankees are 2, 4, 7, and 8. 7 and 8 in the month of June. Series lost to the Dodgers, series lost to Boston twice, with one being a sweep. Now we start this 4-game set against the Angels, followed by a 3-game set against Baltimore, a 3-game set against Cincinnati, and a 3-game set against the Athletics, followed by a 4-game set against Toronto to end the month and take us into July. Now, Alfred, I would just be honest, not exactly a major thing going 7 and 8 over their last 15. Yankees still comfortably in first place by 3.5 games. The Rays behind us by 3.5 games. Toronto behind us by 4.5. But listen, there were some embarrassing losses in that 15-game stretch, including an 18-2 drubbing by the Dodgers in LA. We lost 8-5 in that first game, 18-2 in that second game. Then we came back, won 7-3. The Boston series, lost 10-7, 11-7. And then in that sweep, 2-1 in extras, 4-3, and then 2-0. That second Boston series really kind of I think was the worst for us because it was low scoring and we still couldn't get a hit. Judge's hitting under 400 has dropped to about the 380s. On episode 5, you weren't here, but we talked about will Judge flirt with 400 this season. I don't know if he's going to get back up there now. What's been plaguing the Yankees first 15 games of June?
Just a bad run of momentum, and they just got swept by the Red Sox. And it's one thing to get swept, but to get swept by your division rival is a whole totally another thing. And it's even probably translating to tonight. The Yankees shouldn't be struggling with a team like the Angels. The Angels shouldn't be taking them the extra innings. Teams are going to have bad runs. Teams are going to lose games. Nobody goes 162-0. But you have to win winnable games. And the Yankees have had a tough schedule. In the span of a couple of weeks, you're playing the Dodgers and the Red Sox twice. That's not easy. The Red Sox are a 500 team. The Dodgers are the defending champions, and they're above 500. So, and realistically about Judge, if I'm not trying to diminish Aaron Judge in any way, but if Tony Gwynn couldn't do it and George Brett couldn't do it, I don't foresee Aaron Judge hitting 400 for the season. He was overdue for some regression. Just like Pete Alonso. I didn't see Pete Alonso hitting over 300, especially if his average was up to 348 at one point. I didn't see him sustaining that the entire year. So, it's just a rough patch. And championship caliber teams, contending teams, all are going to hit skids at some point in time. So if I'm a Yankee fan, I'm not even panicking. I'm not worrying.
As you said, Judge now down to 378. Still number 1 in average in the American League. Tied for first with home runs, 26. Second with RBIs with 60. And first in OPS at 1.228. As you said, it is now officially Yankees and the Angels going into extra innings. As Kelsey Jansen able to get out of it in the bottom of the 9th. And you're right. The Angels should not be a team that's taking us into extra innings tonight. That deflating 3-game loss. And again, I think what's interesting about the last 4 games for the Yankees have scored a combined 5 runs over their last 3 games. 5 runs. The series closer against Kansas City, we won 1-0. Then we lost 2-1 against Boston, 4-3 against Boston, and 2-0 against Boston.
Low scoring games.
5 runs in the last 4 games for the Yankees. Mind you, the first 2 games against Kansas City, we scored 10 runs and 6 runs. The last 2 losses in the Red Sox series prior to that, when they came to the stadium, we scored 7 runs in both of those losses. And in the lone win that we have against Boston right now in the last 6 games, that first game of the Boston series back on June 6th, we scored 9 runs in that win. So low offensive outputs for the Yankees, that to me is a problem. And this is something that we've spoken about before. I think the Yankees started getting a little offensively happy, right? They were hitting well. They were hitting home runs. And this is a problem with the Yankees in this analytics time. We start hitting a lot of home runs. We start shooting for the home run. We start shooting for the big hit. The Yankees are doing a great job. You and I have talked about a lot in our group chat. We've talked about it privately in text message. We've talked about it with Grizz. There were a lot of games the Yankees won this year where they scored a lot of runs but did not hit a lot of home runs. And I said from the very beginning of the year when I started to see this happen a couple of times, I was like, man, this is what the Yankees needed. The Yankees needed to get away from constantly being just the team that scored a lot of runs via the home run, and needed to be a team that could score runs and manufacture runs without the home run being the focal point of the offense, but still being that thing in the back of the bag that we could pull out whenever we need to, right? We could get a couple of singles on you. We could string some doubles and some singles on you and score some runs. We can work some walks, get some guys on base. But hey, don't forget, we can mash a couple over that wall at any moment. So don't get it twisted. Don't throw one down the middle of the plate, because whether it was Trent Grisham or it was Goldschmidt or it was Rice or it was Wells or it was Dominguez or it was Judge, we were hitting one. And I think the Yankees have really fallen into a trap where they got very offensively happy and stopped doing the fundamental things that scored them runs. Max Fried has still been great. And in my opinion, I think Max Fried should definitely be right up there for Cy Young. And in my opinion, Max Fried is and everyone's going to crucify me for this because they're going to look at Aaron Judge's numbers and be like, oh my God, how can you say this? To me, Max Fried is the MVP for the Yankees right now. To me, there's no doubt about that.
It's bold.
And I listen, I get it. Judge's numbers have been judgy-in, but this is what Judge does. Would you have expected anything less from Judge? Would you have expected anything different? And if Judge was having a down season, Yankee fans would be crucifying him right now. Judge is doing what Judge does. And while it is beautiful and it is gargantuan, it is what Judge does. And it is what is expected of Judge every year. Max Fried came in as the number 2 guy behind Garrett Cole, coming in from a National League team in the Atlanta Braves to an American League squad in the New York Yankees. You and I have been alive and watched baseball long enough to know that there have been a lot of guys who have come over from the National League to the American League and had a huge culture shock with inflated ERAs.
Yep.
And yet Max Fried has been sitting there, and he is 9-2 right now for the New York Yankees, 9-2 with a 1.89 ERA. I will say that again. Max Fried is 9-2 with an ERA under 2 for the New York Yankees. To me, from a guy who was expected to be the number 2 guy, have a bit of a culture shift, have a bit of a culture shock, coming to a team that was going up against the American League East on a very regular basis, that was going to the American League where you were facing teams that had a lot more prolific offenses on a lot more teams. And we have seen the ERA rise. This man has not only been the calming force. Oh, by the way, Yankees lost Garrett Cole.
Big
so not only has this man come in and righted the ship, he's been the number 1 guy. He's been the ace on that staff. And he has been a guy that Clark Schmidt can step up behind and have a great year, that Carlos Rodon could get up behind and have a great year. Imagine how much more dangerous the Yankees would have been if Garrett Cole had not been hurt and Clark Schmidt was still having the year he was having, and Rodon was still having the year that he was having, and Warren and Max Fried. We'd be talking about possibly one of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball. Max Fried, in my opinion, is the MVP for the New York Yankees. Let's go to your New York Metropolitans, who also sit atop the National League East, 2.5 game lead right now. It is essentially a 2-team race in the National League East. Mets 45-27, 6-4 in their last 10, but on a 3-game losing streak. Philadelphia Phillies 2.5 games back. The Braves 13 games back, going all the way back to that May 30th series against Colorado. You swept Colorado. Beautiful 2 out of 4 set in LA, and those 2 losses very close. But you split with LA in LA, 1-2, lost 2, swept Colorado, swept
Again.
the Nationals. Yep, swept them again, and then swept Washington, and then you came back home against Tampa Bay and lost 3 straight games in their last 3, 7, 10, 16 games. In the last 16 games, the Mets are 11-5. What a great record. But I know you were very, very upset over this Tampa Bay sweep this past weekend.
It's one thing to lose a series. It's another thing to get swept. Couldn't even salvage one game. The thing that upsets me, Carlos Mendoza, I know this is only his second year as a manager, but from what I've seen, from the amount of times I've sat in Citi Field this year, from the amount of time that I've watched him manage games from the beginning of last year till now, his Achilles heel and his problem as a manager is not knowing when to pull the pitcher. He does either one of 2 things consistently every time. He either leaves a pitcher in too long or pulls him in too early. Case in point, Friday night. I was there in person Friday night, by the way. Mets are up 5-1. Clay Holmes pitched 5 innings. He threw 79 pitches. And he pulled Clay Holmes and sent Paul Blackburn out into the 6th inning. Now, if you ask me, if this was the beginning of the season, maybe the first 2 weeks of the season, 3 weeks of the season, you pull that move, I said okay, because the man needs to transition, work up a pitch count, closer to starter. But we're in the 3rd month of the season. Clay Holmes has proven he can consistently give you 6 innings. Consistently, he's giving you 6 innings all year. You pull him 79 pitches. If I were a manager, which I'm not, nor do I play one on television, but if I am a baseball manager, I am not pulling my starter unless he has between 95 to over 100 pitches. 79 pitches is too early. He could have played the 6th inning, and who knows? The Mets were up 5-1. They lost that game 7-5. Paul Blackburn just imploded. He and Max Kranick imploded. And then also,
well, Blackburn's been good. Blackburn's been coming out of that bullpen, giving them some long relief numbers. And you know the analytics nowadays. The analytics say you pull them out after a certain time.
Well, here's the thing: Blackburn has been giving them innings, but and this is what I was saying all weekend long. And you said it yourself. Look who we've played since May 30th. Outside of the Dodgers, 2 series with Colorado, 1 series with Washington. It's like we forgot how to play good teams. We're playing bottom feeders. Washington is toward the end, toward the bottom of the NL East, and the Rockies are going to break the record that just got broken last year, the worst win-loss record in one season. So when we're pummeling up on bad teams, and now we have a step up in competition because Tampa is over 500, they're most likely, they may not get it by the time the season is over, but they're going to be in that wild card mix. So a step up in competition, and all of a sudden we forget how to manage. Our pitching goes to crap. And our offense, oh my God, the offense. I will tell you right now, I have seen enough of Francisco Alvarez. I have seen enough of Ronnie Mauricio, and he's only been here 2 weeks. I have seen enough of Tyler McGill. I have seen enough of Paul Blackburn. Send Max Kranick back to this imaginary made-up pitching lab that I don't know if it exists or not. But I have seen enough of these guys. And Carlos Mendoza needs – and Mendoza does this with his relievers. He'll let the relief – and I understand you want to let your pitchers work out of situations. You want to let your pitchers you don't want to break their confidence. But if a pitcher has walked has started the inning off by walking two guys and giving up a single and now the bases loaded with nobody out, pull him. There is no reason. And I understand, all right, he wanted to give Blackburn some work. We're up 4 runs in the 6th inning. But you have a bullpen that has Reed Garrett, whose ERA, I believe, is .8 something. You have Huáscar Brazoban, whose ERA is in the mid-ones. Why are we going to – and we have Jose Butto, who's been more than serviceable.
Incredible. Butto's been great.
Why are we putting in the Ryan Stanix, whose last name should be changed to Stank, but why are we putting the Ryan Stanix, the Ty Adcocks, the Max Kranix? Like, why? What we have Brandon Waddell, and we don't play. And Waddell is another innings eater who is better than Blackburn. I don't get it.
I'm going to get you a Stanek jersey for Christmas,
and I will gladly burn it. I don't listen. And then the offense. Saturday's game. Okay, put Friday in the rearview mirror. Saturday's game. There were 3 separate times in the game where we were on offense and the bases were loaded and we could not bring anybody home. And the only offensive players I'm going to give a pass to are our top 3. Well, 3 of our top 4. Soto gets a pass because even though, and I've been on this soapbox all season so far, so I'm not going to go back on it. But for the Yankee fans and the Yankee media who love to criticize Juan Soto, I get it. The home runs are down, the RBIs are down. But how can we blame Juan Soto for the team struggling in a series when Juan Soto is the MLB league leader in walks? You're not going to drive in runs when you keep getting walked. Case in point, Sunday's game. Soto went 3 for 5 and he went 0 for 2 officially in the stat line, and 3 of his at-bats were walks. Why I cannot criticize a guy who gets on base 3 times in a game. I don't care how you get on base, single, home run, double. I could care less. He's getting on base.
Billy Bean.
Yeah, his average may be 240 something, but his on base percentage is sky high.
But he gets on base, yes.
Exactly. The guy has proven that he has the best eye in the majors because he leads the league in walks by a large – it's not even by a small margin. It's by a large margin. So I'm not going to criticize him. Francisco Lindor batting in the leadoff spot has been the best thing in his career so far. I can't criticize a guy who starts off every game in the first inning with a base hit. I can't. And then Pete Alonso leading the league and he's leading the league in doubles and RBIs entering today. So I can't criticize him. And he's batting north of 290, slightly under 300.
It's 293 right now.
Yeah, it's the rest of the team. It's the Ronnie Mauricios who should not be up because he didn't play baseball in a year and a half. Guys striking out in key situations.
Mauricio hit a home run in the 8-4 loss.
Yeah, but there's no pressure. The game's out of hand already. He hit that home run late.
I will say this.
Even Jeff McNeil, I can't give Jeff McNeil's been hot lately, but the Tyrone Taylors, the Luis Torrens, like
but where I don't see you giving any blame to, especially for this weekend series, is Tyler McGill.
I just said I've seen enough of Tyler McGill.
6 runs in 3 2/3 innings. 6 runs, 3 of them earned, but gave up 6 runs. Mets lost 8-4. If he had only given up the earned runs, the 3 earned runs, and everybody else would have just done what they did, even Castillo giving up his 1 earned run.
Another bullpen bum.
Mets would have had it. That would have been a tie game right there. And when we look at Sunday's game, the 9-0 shutout, I mean, Griffin Canning, who's been great this year, had a bum game. 6 runs on 4 hits and 5 walks. Can
I say something about the pitching in that 9-0 game? You watch baseball most of your life.
Yes.
When a team is getting blown out, the losing team, what's the rule in baseball as far as who they can put in the game to pitch?
Well, that way, 9-0 is not a blowout like that.
Well, no, but you know the rule book. If a team is down by 8 runs or more, they are allowed to put a position player in the pitch.
Yes.
Why did Jared Young, who was the backup first baseman, have a better frame than the rest of the bullpen that game, and he's not even a pitcher?
Hold on. No. Okay. Yes.
He had a third of an inning and only gave up a walk
and a hit. Gave out a
has-
walk and a hit, but that's not a better frame than Kranick, who pitched 2 innings, gave up only 2 hits, a walk and a strikeout, no runs, or Adcock, who pitched an inning and 2/3 and got 4 strikeouts and a walk, inning and 2/3. So we're not going to sit here and say that Young had a better frame than anybody else. And in fact, the Mets were not losing by 9 runs until the top of the 9th inning. They were down 6-0 going into the top of the 9th, and then Tampa scored 3 runs off of Stanek in the top of the 9th inning, thereby giving you a 9-0 a loss.
And then the worst part
it wasn't like you guys were losing 12-1 in the 5th inning, and it's just like, okay, we're done.
And then the worst part about all this is, like I said, we took advantage of, we don't make our own schedule. We took advantage of the schedule. We swept Colorado twice. We swept Washington. We beat up on the teams we were expected to beat. And honestly, if you look at our schedule from opening day up until present, we've had a lot of sub 500 teams that we've played.
You had, and that's what we're going to talk about right now going into this. You guys are off tonight when we record, but going into the rest of this, right, and the rest of this month, going into let's go over what we're looking at for the rest of June for the Mets. You've got 7 games against Atlanta,
Philly,
3 games at Philly, 3 games at Pittsburgh. Okay, you are on the road for 9 of your 13 games from now until the end of the month. You only play a 4-game set against Atlanta, June 23rd to June 26th at Citi Field. The rest of the time you're on the road. Atlanta, Philly, Atlanta, Pittsburgh, and then that brings us to July 1st, so we'll stop there. Listen, you've beaten up on Pittsburgh before.
Yep.
You've beaten up on Philly this year. I mean, Philly has not necessarily been.
We swept Philly.
Right. You swept Philly earlier in the year back in April, 5-4, 5-1, 4-3. This will be your first time seeing the Braves this season.
And the Braves, even though they're, 12 games under 500?
And they're 13 games out of first place.
Well, even though they're 13 games behind, they've always played us tough, whether they've been good or they've been bad. So that's not going to be easy.
And Strider seems to be getting back in stride, pun intended.
And the worst part is we don't have Kodai Senga for like the next month and change.
Yeah, Senga out again.
We don't have our ace. Thanks, Pete Alonso. I love you, but thank you.
And listen, at least thankfully it's not season ending like it was last year.
Yeah, and you and I were in the stands for that season-ending injury last season.
When he just came back from injury.
Senga can't catch a break. But no, we definitely need to take advantage. We have to play very well in this stretch. Cannot lose the series to Atlanta. We don't have to sweep anybody, but we just cannot. Worst case scenario, that 4-game next week, we got to split it. But we cannot lose any series. We've had Philadelphia's number all season. They don't have Bryce Harper right now. We got to take advantage of that. Aaron Nola's struggling. We're scheduled to see him at the end of the week. Got to take advantage of that. So, can't lose to Atlanta, especially because they're having an off year. And it's crazy because we haven't played them all year up until now. Thanks, Rob Manfred, for making us play everybody. But we're playing them when Acuna is back, Strider is back. Lord help us all. I might catch an aneurysm depending on how the series goes.
And listen, unfortunately, you guys go, you would think the Atlanta series a little bit of you got Schwellenbeck to start the series tomorrow, who's coming off a complete game, 2-run, 9-strikeout win against Milwaukee. And prior to that, he went and did 6 1/3, no runs, 5 hits, 11 strikeouts against Boston. So you're going to have to hope that he is probably more on his, 4 earned run, 6 earned run kind of game, but you got Schwellenbeck to start. Then you got Chris Sale in that second game of the season, and Paul Blackburn scheduled to start in that game, by the way. Sale is 4-4, but I mean, listen, his last couple of starts, 1 run, 7 innings against Milwaukee, 1 run, 6 innings against Arizona, no runs, 6 innings against Philly, 1 run, 7 innings at San Diego, 1 run, 7 innings at Boston. Sale is looking like the Sale of old right now. And then you got maybe the easier part of it, where you got Elder in that season, that series ender. But then you go into Philly and you've got Wheeler and Luzardo in game 1 and game 3. And then you don't see, and then that 4-game series that you mentioned, that second go around with Atlanta, you start with Sale and you got Strider in game 3. So you've got Schwellenbeck, Sale, Wheeler, Luzardo, Sale, Strider. 6 really tough pitching matchups in these upcoming 10 games.
Man, listen, I just need the offense to wake up. We've got guys working their way back from injury. Well, Mania, Frankie Montas, if he comes back and makes the active roster, Lord help us all with his struggles in Syracuse. Can't even get out little league players, but I'm not scared, Pete, but I'm a little frustrated, and I hope that this is not the start of a collapse, because as much as I hate to admit it, what do the Mets do? Start off hot and collapse.
Well, listen, you guys are still in good place. I am worried a little bit about this opening Atlanta series because you're going, like I said, Schwellenbeck and Sale back-to-back is tough. You got Peterson, Blackburn, and Holmes. I think that series ender on Thursday with Clay Holmes starting should be a win. I'm worried about maybe these first 2 games with Peterson and Blackburn.
Peterson's coming off a complete game shutout.
He is, but again, you got Peterson versus Schwellenbeck and then Blackburn versus Sale. Schwellenbeck has been great. Schwellenbeck has been great for the Braves. And then I didn't realize this, the middle pitcher. I haven't been keeping up with some of the younger guys on Philly staff. You start with Zach Wheeler, you end with Luzardo, but in the middle, you've got Mick Abel,
the rookie,
who's had a great rookie season so far, and he's going up against Griffin Canning. You got McGill, Canning, and Peterson against Philly. So it's a little tough, And then again, as we said, you start that 4-game series, Blackburn versus Sale. Then you got Holmes and Elder matching up again, but then you got McGill going up against Strider. So this is a really tough 10-game stretch. Atlanta, Philly, Atlanta. This can really switch first and second place in the NL East. At the same time, it could solidify first place for the Mets if they have a really good 10-game stretch.
Got to beat up on the divisional foes.
There you go. And then we will figure out what happens going into July. When we come back
for 4th of July weekend. We're not friends for that weekend.
No, we are not. We will talk about that as we get closer. But we will definitely see about that. But before we wrap up, let's go around the league for some news and notes, catch up on some smaller things. I saw an article today on ESPN. They're obviously coming straight off the Devers trade, talking about the front office executives under the most pressure to do something with their teams. They listed Mike Hazen, the general manager of the Diamondbacks, Dave Dombrowski of the Phillies.
Was the Mariners GM on there?
Yeah, Jerry DiPoto on there, Chris Young for the Rangers, and Mike Elias for the Orioles, Piccolo for the Royals, Jed Hoyer for the Cubs, in that order. I was very surprised Cashman's not on that list. I think Cashman is under a little bit of a hot seat. I do think we need some more pitching, especially relief pitching.
You can't put Cashman on that list because the Yankees are running roughshod in the AL East. I know the ultimate goal is a championship, but The Yankees have been in first place in that division since the end of opening day till present. So, I mean, granted, it's a lack of competition because the rest of the teams are just mid in that division. But Cashman's had that job since what, 95?
No. I would say probably a little bit later than that.
96, 7? Well, listen, as long as he's been there, he's earned a very long leash. So, and he's 5 World Series rings in his tenure. So, and still getting in deep playoff runs. So I don't think that he will ever in order for Cashman to ever be on the hot seat, the Yankees would have to miss the postseason maybe 3 seasons in a row, and even that may not be enough to get him out of the GM chair. So
Cashman took over in '98.
Okay.
From Gene Michael and Bob Watson.
So he's got 4. He's responsible for 4 of those, but he was in the organization prior.
He was the assistant GM for the '96 championship.
So
he's been with the Yankees since 1986.
Sheesh.
Well, he was an intern in 1986, worked in minor league scouting, and then he became a baseball operations assistant. And then in 1990, when Steinbrenner was banned, that's when Gene Michael took over daily operations of the Yankees while he was also the general manager, and Cashman assisted Gene Michael. He was the farm director, then became a major league administrator, the assistant GM officially in 1992. Then 95, Bob Watson took over for Gene Michael. And then in 1998 was when Bob Watson resigned and Cashman was brought in to be the senior vice president and general manager at the time, the second youngest general manager, and was only on a 1-year contract, by the way, when he came in 1998. 1-year contract, $300,000.
Well, hey, he's responsible. He's responsible for 4 rings in his tenure. So, 98, yeah. What was it? Going on.
He made the big trade in 1998 when he traded David Wells to get Roger Clemens.
Listen, he's probably going to be the longest tenured GM in all of sports, if not baseball. Yes, but I don't think Cashman will be on the hot seat.
I just think of just making the trade though, because my thing is like, the Yankees need bullpen help. I would probably want to get another starter on there because I don't know. Again, Heel's still coming back, but you can't expect Warren and Schmidt to be this great all season long. They're eventually going to tire out. I would like to bring in another starter.
Oh, you don't want Marcus? You don't want Marcus Stroman coming back?
No. I would like a little bit more bench help offensively, just to fill the holes that we can anticipate having. I do think the Yankees do need to make some moves. I don't know, as good as they've been, I don't know if I think the Yankees are 1 or 2 pieces away from being a World Series winning team. I think we're a World Series caliber team. I don't know if we win the World Series as currently constructed. I do think we need more bullpen help and some bench help.
Fair enough. But as far as other executives that are on the hot seat, definitely the Orioles GM, which I actually read an article in The Athletic this weekend. The Orioles, who should be sellers, are actually going to try to become buyers at the deadline. I mean, they're only 12 games under 500, I believe, entering as of what, yesterday. So, if they can turn that around and leverage a wild card spot after a horrid start, that would be something. Mariners GM, depending on what happens, because we know the trade deadline is July 31st. Yep. Depending on what goes on with the Mariners, they could either be, if they have a good month the next month, they could turn themselves into buyers. But I expect them to become buyers because they consistently stay at 500, and the last couple of seasons they've historically been a 500 team. Everybody expects the Diamondbacks to have a fire sale because their season is over, especially after the Corbin Burns injury. I expect either Naylor or Eugenio Suarez to be moved as one of the hot commodities of the trade deadline. And you heard it here first. if there is any team willing to give up the entire farm, Paul Skeens can be had.
Listen, I put no stock in the Paul Skeen rumors, but I am putting a lot of stock, as you said, in those Diamondback rumors.
Cedric Mullins in Baltimore will probably be on the move.
Mullins and O'Hearn in Baltimore. The Mariners could use offense to really kind of protect Cal Raleigh. They do need some more hitting. Chris Young of the Texas Rangers could use him. It's almost like DeGrom goes to a team and their offense just stops being offensive.
Well, to tell you the truth, if I'm the Mets, I'm looking to reunite with DeGrom. He's having a hell of a year this year. He's the only pitcher doing something.
But do you think he's willing to come back to New York?
It doesn't matter if he's willing to come back. He's got years left on that contract. You send him to us, he has to report.
He doesn't have a no trade?
He does not have a no trade. Also, don't expect the Dodgers to do anything in this in this trade deadline. I don't think they're going to make a trade because they're 1 through 9, and some of their bench is good enough to be starters elsewhere, and they want their pitching healthy. So, yeah.
My issue is I don't think the Rangers unload. I think they believe that they have a legitimate shot right now. And if I'm looking at the standings, if I'm being very honest with you, they are only 5.5 games out of first place, a game out of second place. So they're very close to a wild card. I don't know if they get rid of their biggest piece. And honestly, I just looked it up just to clarify. He does have a full no trade clause in his contract with the Rangers.
Here's my other thing. A lot of the teams that should be selling have nothing to sell. The Marlins.
Well, no, I think the Orioles.
The Marlins have nothing to sell. The Rockies have absolutely nothing to sell. Who else? The Rockies have nothing to sell. If nobody can get Skeens, the Pirates are not going to sell anything, and they don't have anything anybody would want anyway because Andrew McCutchen is old and washed up. Sorry, Kutch, I love you, by the way. Yeah, the White Sox, Luis Robert has killed his own value with the piss poor season he's having this season. It's crazy to me. A guy went from the stolen base leader in the AL and batting over 300 2 years ago to not even hitting 160. Crazy. So
I think there are a lot of pieces that are that could be on the move, and I disagree with you. I think the Rockies and
who do you target on the Rockies? A lot of their guys are hitting below 250. They're pitching.
Yeah, but I also wonder how much of that has to do with them just being deflated playing for that team.
But they've been deflated since opening day. Opening day, everybody's on the same slate.
Yeah, but I think I think that team, they kind of know the Rockies don't have a shot. They weren't really going to be a good team. And I think there's a sense of malaise there. And same thing with the White Sox. I think there is a sense. I think there is something to be said to a change of scenery trade. I think a guy like Luis Robert, that could happen. The Diamondbacks, in my opinion, have a lot to sell, as you were saying. Not only Josh Naylor and Suarez, but you got Merrill Kelly. Zach Gallen could be on the market. These are guys that could be going somewhere.
And you know what's crazy? There were rumors at the beginning of the season that Sandy Alcantara was not expected to remain on the Marlins past the trade deadline. With the year he's having, he hurt his own value too. The guy's got an ERA north of 7. So
he does. You got to think the Orioles, again, Mullins and O'Hearn, you got to wonder if maybe even Adley Rushman will be, in the conversation for something they can get a major haul for. Zach Elfin from the Orioles could be an upgrade to somebody, especially for the Cubs. The Cubs need some pitching.
I will tell you, the Cardinals, if the next month, because they're above 500 right now, if they teeter below 500 by the time the deadline rolls around, they're going to shop Nolan Arenado. I guarantee you. If they feel that they fall out of contention, they automatically become sellers. If they're still above 500 by the time the end of next month rolls around, they could be buyers. There's a couple of teams. The Red Sox were on that teetering list too of teams that could potentially be buyers or sellers depending on the next month. The Blue Jays too.
Yeah, so, and if you think about it, honestly, the Red Sox, we talked about it. If they're not looking at getting a a shot. Aroldis Chapman could be on the move.
Kenley Jansen on the Angels could be going. Taylor Ward, Jorge Soler, all guys on 1-year deals.
Yeah, Bo Bichette in the final year of his contract. You could see the Guardians possibly trying to see if they fall out of it. You know what the worth is for Carlos Santana. You got somebody like Max Anderson, Tiger's second base prospect out there. Same thing with the Twins, with Kalen Culpepper, huge shortstop prospect. I do think Luis Roberts is a major chip for somebody. You could have Mason Mason Miller in Oakland.
Here's the thing about the Athletics. From what I've read, there's 3 players that they are absolutely not letting go. They're not letting go of Mason Miller. They're not letting go of Tyler Soderstrom, and they're not letting go of Brent Rooker. Reason being, they gave all those guys lengthy extensions last year because when they get to Vegas in 3 years, they want all 3 of those guys to be the featured guys when they do get to Vegas, whenever that happens. But they don't and if they're not going to move those 3 guys, and mind you, the Athletics have been bad for years. They could have moved all 3 of those guys last year and didn't do it. They rejected phone calls for Mason Miller last year.
Yeah.
And with their situation, they're playing in Sutter Health Park. It's a horrible ballpark. It's a minor league stadium. The ownership doesn't care about the fan base or the players because Luis Severino started speaking out against the team, and he's got the biggest contract in team history. So they don't care about their organization. They want to make. They're not going to make any moves to win. I don't see them making any significant trades in this deadline.
And here's the thing. Here's the interesting thing. Here's a name that I think is very interesting. And I know it's going to sound completely ridiculous considering that this team is in playoff contention. This team has a chance to not only get a wild card spot, but I think be in a dog fight for the division at the end of the year. The player I'm about to mention is an ace of their staff, and right now the only healthy ace on their staff. And you would think if this team wants a long playoff run, they might want to keep this guy. But I could see either Michael King or Dylan Cease on San Diego being trade chips. Now, Michael King right now is injured. Cease is right now the only healthy guy that they have right now, with also Yu Darvish being injured. But both of them are in the final year of their deal. And I don't know if the Padres are willing to go into the offseason with 2 pitchers being able to walk with them getting nothing for them. I think you make a decision. Are we going to try to keep Dylan, or are we going to try to keep King? And what you try to do is trade the other one to get something that can push you even further, possibly in the playoffs.
Well, Cease is having a horribly bad year this year. King is having a good year. I think they move on from Cease. From what I've seen from him this season, let him get rid of him, get something for him while you can. Try to keep King. I will say San Diego's window to make a deep postseason run and possibly get to a World Series is shrinking. Machado's getting older.
Yeah.
Tatis is getting older. This core group has been around since 2019. Jackson Merrill's the only young guy that they have in that lineup, and Xander Bogaerts is not the same Bogaerts that was winning World Series in Fenway in 2018. Luis Arias, his bat has cooled down. That guy was a batting champion 2 years in a row. He's not consistently hitting anymore, and there's no more magic because when you see Jose Iglesias and you say OMG, that's because he struck out again, not because his song is playing.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And even the Giants, right? We talk about these Giants. It just made this big Devers trade, but you know what's a name they did not give up in this Devers trade? Carson Wisenhunt, their number 2 prospect, considered to have the best changeup in the minor leagues right now. 3.61 ERA with 59 strikeouts, over 67 and a third innings for AAA Sacramento. This could be a young kid that they could dangle to get some other pieces. I think, especially if they want to make another run. And then again, another player, you talked about Paul Skeens, but I think Andrew Haney over in Pittsburgh is a piece. Nick Martinez with the Reds is on a 1-year deal. And a guy that I think is a very interesting piece here, we just spoke about him in the New York report, but honestly, For the Phillies, the bullpen help that they need and the outfield help that they need, Mick Abel may be somebody that you dangle as a young kid who's got a lot of club control.
Not
The
not your
dangle.
top pitching prospect.
Listen, Philly, like you said, the window is closing. Bryce Harper's getting older. Real Muto's on the last year of his deal. If I'm not mistaken, I got to look it up, but if I'm not mistaken, you've got a couple of other guys that are in the last years of their deal.
Trey Turner's getting older.
Right. So do you go out there and say, hey, that window is shrinking with the core that we have? We have Wheeler. We have Luzardo. We have a 1-2 punch right now, and both of them are relatively young as well. We can trade Abel and get a haul back. And I think if you're the Phillies, you'd get a good haul for a Mick Abel. And now here's the last name I'm going to throw out to you, especially if the Braves continue to fall. Do you shop Chris Sale, who's having a resurgent year? Do you shop Schwellenbeck? And lastly, do you shop Marcell Ozuna?
So I think the Braves, if they give up anybody, will be Ozuna. Ozuna's a pending free agent. He's I believe 34, 35 years old. He's the only piece that will be on the move because the Braves, from what I've read, their front office is looking at this season as it's an anomaly. It's just one bad year. And if you look at the games they've lost, it's all been bad luck. They've lost games. They were up 6-7 runs in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs, and the Giants came back on them. So I personally believe, well, not me, but their front office believes that this is an anomaly. This is just one bad year. They're going to look to strengthen their roster in hopes of next season being a success, especially because there's a lot of rumors saying that Brian Snitker, the manager, he's mentally checked out. He's older now. He's in his mid-70s. They're saying he might retire after this season. His mind isn't really focused on baseball. So with all that coming into play, I don't think they're going to sell off the team. I cannot see them moving Ozzy Albies. I can't see them moving Michael Harris. Ronald Acuna is probably off limits. Matt Olson is not going to get moved. Austin Riley is not going to get moved. They're just going to chalk this up as a bad season and try to acquire some pieces to either A, make a wild card run. Because remember, in 2021, at the deadline in 21, they were 5.5 games behind the Mets. No, 4.5, I'm sorry. Behind the Mets for first place. They ended up winning the division and went on a run in the second half. They were, I believe, 5 to 6 games under 500 at the time, and they went on a run and they won the World Series that year. Plenty of baseball is left. So for a team 13 under or 13 games back to give up on the season, I don't think so. It's not like they're Colorado or the Athletics where they're so far gone, or they're a team like Colorado where you look up in the standings and you're looking up into heaven pretty much where the Dodgers sit. So,
but again, listen, I think Chris Sale is also a pitcher, 36 years old. After this year, will only have one more year of club control, so he would be on a 1-year deal going into next year. I think he's somebody that could be worth something. You have Schwellenbeck, you have Strider, you have that 1-2 punch of younger guys. You can trade somebody like Sale. You can get something for him. Teams are going to be looking for veteran pitching that is consistent. Sale's having a great year right now. He's looking like the Chris Sale of old. A lot of teams can get enamored by that. And as you said, that power bat. We all know power bats sell well at the deadline. So those two guys could give you a good return. And again, you mentioned Sandy Alcantara. If I'm the New York Yankees or if I'm the New York Mets, I take a swing at him. Why? Because again, he's young. The raw stuff is there. And I say this. Here's the thing.
Recovering from Tommy John and 7 ERA.
But here's a question. As bad as of a year as he's having, is it possible that somebody could swindle the Marlins into getting him for below market value for as bad as he's been? And if you're the Mets or you're the Yankees, and you don't have to give up much. You don't have to give up game changers. You don't have to give up major pieces. Is it worth the investment if Sandy Alcantara turns it around and regains the form that we've known him to be?
Or think of it from the Marlins' perspective. His value is down now. He's coming off of Tommy John surgery. He missed all of last year. His numbers are horrid this year. How about they keep him, hopefully hoping that he returns to form next season so his value goes back up and you could get a better haul for him. And he's under team control through 2027. So
right, but I think that's the big thing, right? He's under team control till 2027, so next year is 2026.
You have 2 years. You have 2 years plus you have 2 years for him to get back to form, and he can go back to form, and all of a sudden his value would increase. If I'm the Marlins, and this is just me, knowing what Sandy Alcantara once was, I'm holding him hostage, and I'm going to wait for next season to see how he plays out. If he's a dud next season, then we get rid of him for less than what we think he's worth. Or you hold on to him, and next season he becomes a hot shot again, and now I can command more for him.
But that's if you command. It's a club option, right? Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I mean, if I'm Sandy's agents, I'm saying if he returns to form, ride it out and get big money on the free agent market, because the Marlins can't hold you. The Marlins can't do anything about it.
Well, if they trade him at the 26th deadline, let's say next season he has a lights out first half, right? He gets traded at the deadline, has a lights out second half for whatever team he goes to, and then he'll be a free agent at the end of the year, and he can command big money the same way. He doesn't have to stay on the Marlins to command big money, but this is about the Marlins trying to get the most of what they can get for him.
I think if you're his agent right now, you broker the trade now while he's having an off season. You get him off the Marlins, and then at least get whatever team that he gets traded to, pick up the 27 option now to give him a guaranteed 2 years of money. And then at least he's on a 2-year deal, or maybe even renegotiate a contract. He still is very young. He's not even 30 yet.
Because here's my thing, right? If I'm the Mets, and I'm speaking strictly from a Mets standpoint, if I'm the Mets, I have 4 starting pitchers. Well, maybe, all right, let's call it 3 because Senga's out of commission for the next month. But 3 of my starters, McGill, Peterson, Holmes. No, not McGill, Peterson, Holmes, sorry. Peterson, Holmes, Canning all have ERAs of mid-3s or lower, right? Senga comes back, that's 4 pitchers, 3 or lower. Why would I take a flyer on a guy with an ERA of 7 this season when I have 4 solid, reliable arms, a spot starter for a 5th, and I've got Sean Manaea, who was a lights out pitching ace like stuff in the second half of last year, coming back into my fold by the time the trade deadline rolls around. I'm not going to trade for a guy like Alcantara to stick him in the bullpen. I don't even think he would want to go to the bullpen. He might end up a malcontent like Devers if David Stearns told him, all right, Sandy, you're in the pen. So I don't know. And is it worth the investment? What if you give up some prize prospects you really want to hold on to, and the guy's arm falls off?
I don't know if you have to give up the prize prospects. That's the thing.
And here's the other thing. The Mets have 3 top pitching prospects. They have Jonah Tong, Blade Tidwell, and Brandon Sproat. So it's not like we're in a dire need for pitching, but I mean, I don't know. I expect Sandy to stay a Marlin until next season.
Listen, I think, at least for the Yankees, I think it's worth a flyer. If you don't have to give up, and again, I'm not saying we go over here, we give up Spencer or Lawson, or we give up a lot of these guys. I don't think you give up one of your top prospects for Sandy. I don't even think you give up somebody like a Dominguez for him. But I think if you can get him on the cheap, you could figure out a way, maybe a 3-team trade, something, you get him in. I think he's worth a flyer right now as a 4th guy, a 5th guy, to see if you can revitalize him. And if we're talking about a David Stearns, if we're talking about a pitching coach for the New York Yankees that has done a great job at retooling guys and making them better, I think for both the Mets and the Yankees, if you can get Sandy on the cheap, heck, if I'm the Phillies and I can figure out a way to get him on the cheap, I bring him in because I can hide him in my already good rotation. And if he's bad, he's bad. Trade him away and get something for him on a rebound. And if he's good, even if he's just slightly better than where he is now, if it's just glimpses, I'll take that as a fourth or fifth guy. I don't know. And maybe it's just me talking crazy. I don't know. But I also do believe in a change of scenery kind of situation. I also don't know maybe how much that Tommy John is still maybe affecting him. Maybe it is, the surgery thing. But ladies and gentlemen, jam-packed episode number 6, June Swoons. We will be back in 2 weeks before the end of the month to talk about episode 7. Where we go in July? This is where those dog days start. Summer of baseball is heating up. Trade deadline in a month and a half. Things are going to get very hot and heavy for Major League Baseball. Will the Mets and the Yankees still both be in first place when we meet again in 2 weeks? Looking to all three of us. From my colleagues, Grizz off tonight, Al, I'm Pete Rosado, the voice of a generation. Still big mad softball got canceled tonight. We will see you in 2 weeks for the dog days of baseball. Enjoy the weather.
Subway Series Part 2.
Here we go.